the most aggressive chess player of all time. He plays outrageous chess, and on this day in 1999 at Veselin, Garry Kasparov sat down with the white pieces against Veselin Topalov, and what happened next was so disgusting, so brilliantly violent, that chess engines 25 years later today look at this game and just say, yeah, that's perfect. We got nothing. Now it's important to know that Veselin Topalov, Kasparov's opponent in this particular game, is no slouch himself. In fact, he would go on later to become a world champion who could demolish 99% of chess players on the planet before his morning coffee. But today, Topalov is about to become the canvas for Kasparov's masterpiece, and we'll be analyzing the game from Kasparov's perspective. Kasparov opens with e4, the king's pawn, staking his claim to the center. Topalov responds with d6, the modern defense, solid but flexible. After d4 knight f6, we're looking at black's knight attacking that central e4 pawn immediately. Kasparov continues with knight c3, developing and defending the e4 pawn. Then comes g6, and now we're officially in Perk defense territory. Now, evidently from the style of play, this is black's way of saying, go ahead, build your impressive center. I'm going to fianchetto my bishop on g7 and pressure you from the long diagonal. Then Kasparov drops bishop to e3. Now, let's pause here because this is fascinating. Most players in that position would automatically play knight to f3, completing development in the most natural way, or maybe f4, supporting the center aggressively. But Kasparov? He develops the bishop to e3, and here's the mind-bending part. According to modern computer analysis, this is Kasparov's worst move of the entire game. Think about that for a second. His worst move is an excellent move. My God. At this point, if you haven't already, you should realize this is the standard we're playing at today. Kasparov's move serves multiple purposes, you see. It develops a piece, controls dark squares, and keeps options open for both f2 to f3, supporting e4, and queenside castling. But more importantly, it shows Kasparov is already thinking differently than his opponent expects. After bishop to g7, black completes the fianchetto, placing the bishop on the long diagonal, where it eyes white's center and queenside. And here Kasparov responds with queen d2. And this is pure Kasparov genius. Why queen d2? Well, first, it prepares queenside castling, which will place the white king safely away from the center while bringing the rook into the game with tempo. Second, it connects the rooks along the back rank. Third, and this is where it gets spicy, it prepares to support a kingside attack with moves like bishop h6 in hopes of trading off black's fianchettoed bishop. Black plays c6, supporting the d5 break and controlling the b5 and d5 squares. This is solid classical development, by the way. Then comes f3, and this is where you see Kasparov's attacking DNA. The move up to f3 looks slow, even anti-positional at first glance, as it creates weaknesses around white's king and blocks the natural knight f3 square. But Kasparov isn't thinking about weaknesses, he's thinking about attack. And for that, this move serves three critical purposes. Supports the e4 pawn without having to use the knight on f3, prevents knight g4, which would be annoying after the bishop goes to e3, and prepares g2, g4, g5, a potential pawn storm against black's kingside. Black responds with b5, and the counterattack begins. This is thematic in the perk. If white builds up on the kingside, black strikes on the queenside. It's basically chess at its purest, and at this point, it's a race to see whose attack arrives first. Now comes knight to a 2, and you're probably screaming at your screen. Here's the brilliant thing. Kasparov already knows where this knight is going, and it's not f3. This knight has a date with destiny via several possible routes. e2 to g3 to h5, putting pressure on f7 and supporting a kingside attack. Knight e2 to f4, controlling key central squares and eyeing the h5 and d5 squares. Or knight e2 to g3 to f5, potentially sacrificing itself to open lines against the black king, and although the flexibility is the key. By playing knight e2 instead of knight f3, Kasparov keeps all these options open, while his opponent now has to prepare for multiple threats that could stem from these complications. In this position, black plays knight to d7, developing the knight and supporting the center. This is a natural developing move, bringing another piece into play while maintaining flexibility, but now Kasparov strikes with bishop h6, directly challenging black's fianchettoed bishop. This forces an immediate decision from black, and black has no choice but to trade. Now, this might look like a simple exchange, but it's actually the first step in a master plan. That bishop on g7 was the main defender of black's king. In chess, we call this removing the defender. It's like dismissing the bodyguard before attempting the assassination. And if you look at the position now, Black's kingside dark squares, f6, g7, h6, h8, are suddenly weaker. If Black castles kingside, those squares around the king become potential invasion points for White's pieces. Black continues with bishop b7, developing the bishop and putting pressure on White's e4 pawn. Then a 3, a quiet move that prepares b2, b4, supporting the center and potentially launching a queenside pawn storm. e5 is Black's central break, striking at White's pawn center. And this is really the whole point of what Black has been playing. Black gives up the center initially, but then fights to break it down. Now White castles queenside, and after queen e7, b1 knight c1, we get another queenside castle from Black. This is it. At this point, both sides have shown their cards. Both kings have castled queenside. In chess, when kings castle on opposite sides, it means one thing: violence. Pure, calculated violence. Both sides will launch pawn storms at each other's kings, and whoever gets there first wins. The position after knight b3 shows Kasparov's knight has found its ideal square. From b3, it controls the important c5 and d4 squares while eyeing the a5 square, potentially supporting a queenside attack. But Black has ideas. Remember, this is no ordinary chess player. He strikes with d4, opening the center and trying to trade pieces to reduce White's attacking potential. But White simply recaptures with the rook, keeping maximum pressure. c5 attacks the rook, and it retreats to d1. And after knight b6, it's sort of clear what Black is trying to do. Black here is trying to blockade White's queenside play and support the advance of the c-pawn. Here, Kasparov plays g3, a quiet but profound move. This prepares bishop h3, adding another attacking piece to the kingside, and supports a potential f3, f4 advance. The Black king feels the pressure and steps away from the potential tactics to b8. White responds knight f5, putting the knight on a fantastic outpost where it eyes the c6 and b7 squares. The bishop retreats to maintain the defense of the long diagonal, and then bishop to h3 joins the attack, eyeing the d7 square and preparing to support a kingside assault. d5 trying to break open the center and create counterplay once more. However, this is a miscalculation from Black, as it opens lines that Kasparov will exploit. And here Kasparov plays queen f4, check. The very first check of the game. The Black king must move, and after king a7, rook e1 brings the last piece into the game. And now just look at White's pieces. Every single White piece is now aimed at Black's position like cannons. Black pushes forward, but this also opens the position further. Now comes a critical moment, knight to d5. Kasparov centralizes his knight with devastating effect. After trading, White has a powerful passed pawn and Black offers queen d6, hoping to trade queens and defuse White's attack. In most positions, trading queens when under attack is good advice, but this isn't most positions. And now Kasparov shows why he's the greatest tactical player in chess history. Can you take a guess what he plays next? I mean, it'll probably ache your brain if you try, but if you want to go ahead anyway, you can pause the video and try to guess. And here it comes, folks. Rook takes d4. Oh my god! Instead of the expected queen trade, he sacrifices the rook, just gives it away in the middle of the board like it's candy at Halloween. Just like that. And here's why this move is even more incredible. Rook takes on. d4 creates a forced sequence of moves to checkmate the Black king in 20 moves. 20 moves! Oh my god. Do you know how hard it is to find a move like this in a game of this caliber? And to think that Black is forced to mate in 20 moves is just diabolical. Unless, of course, you play on genius levels, which apparently Kasparov doesn't just grace, but flourishes in. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this is just god-level chess right there. And you know Black has to take because a rook is a rook. So c takes d4 forced. But by taking, Black opens the c file for White's rook and eliminates the pawn that was defending the d5 square, and now Kasparov plays rook e7 check. Oh my god, incredible. The rook invades on the 7th rank with check, and the king has two options here, b6 or b8. King b6 was played in the actual game because if king b8, then queen takes d4 and White threatens multiple mates. The point is that Black's king is being forced away from its defenders and into the open field where White's army can hunt it down. After the king moves, queen takes d4 check, another check forcing the king to move, and here's where it gets absolutely mental. King a5. The king is being dragged up the board. b4, check forcing the king further to a4, and now queen, c3 threatening checkmate on a3. Look at the position. The black king on a4 is surrounded by white pawns and pieces with no defenders in sight. The king is so far from home it might as well be in another country. Queen takes d5, black grabs material while they can trying to survive, and Kasparov plays rook a7, another quiet move that threatens complete devastation. Bishop b7 tries to defend, but Kasparov plays the cold-blooded rook b7, sacrificing the exchange, rook for bishop, to keep the attack rolling. And here we get queen c4 from black, trying to trade queens and survive, but Kasparov is having none of it. Queen takes f6. He doesn't trade, keeps attacking, and the computer today says, yes, this is the best move. Of course it is. This is Kasparov we're talking about. Now what follows is one of the most beautiful king hunts in chess history. King takes a3. The king has no choice. It's being hunted like an animal. Queen takes a6 check. King takes b4. The king continues its involuntary journey. c3 check. Another pawn gives check. At this point, this is disgusting. King takes c3 forced. Queen a1 check. And now the black king, which started on a7, is on c3 in white's territory, being executed in broad daylight. King d2, the only move. Queen b2 check. King d1. And the king has reached white's back rank. Bishop f1, rook d2 trying to create threats, but Kasparov has calculated everything. Rook d7, white trades rooks to simplify the winning process. Bishop c4 taking the queen, recaptures opening the b file, and queen takes h8 scooping up the rook. The rest is what chess players call technique, which means it's still incredibly hard, but Kasparov makes it look like a walk in the park. Rook d3 from black, queen a8 by white, c3 trying to push the pawn, queen a4 check, king e1 and f4 supporting the pawns, f5 from black trying to create complications, but king c1 just walking the king to safety. Rook d2 and after queen a7, Topalov resigns. The position is completely hopeless for black. White has extra pawns, a dominant queen, and black's king is exactly where Kasparov wants him and had seen 20 moves earlier. This is just wild. And the craziest part? Kasparov later said he'd analyzed this exact combination at home in his preparation. He saw this possibility before the game and recognized it when it appeared on the board. Do you know how mad you have to be to see games before you actually go to a live competition to recreate it? My God! Guys, this is insane. This is outrageous chess at its best. And if you play outrageous chess like Kasparov, I don't know, man. But we respect you. I mean, just look at that rating. Crazy stuff! So I hope this game made you feel better about yourself, or maybe worse, depending on how you look at it anyways. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and please support us by subscribing to the channel. Now, if you want to see another wild mind on the board, a player so good he began with a handicap and still won, check out this video next, and I'll see you there.